The diary beneath the black glass planet was dead. Its sky was a dull gray that never changed. Not stormy, not clear, just still. The wind moved, but it carried no scent, no heat, only the dry hush of time grinding everything into dust. Kalem walked through the ruins with slow, careful steps. His boots crunched over bones that didn't belong to any creature known to Earth. Thin, spiral structures half buried in ash. Tall towers stood crooked in the distance, bent like they had once bowed to something bigger than time itself. This was the last survey. His final mission before retirement. But as soon as he arrived, something felt wrong. Not dangerous, not hostile. Personal. Kalem was human, one of the last field researchers who still preferred boots on the ground over drones. People laughed at him for that back home, but he believed in presence, in walking where others only scan. You see more when you feel the ground, he always said. And now, he was feeling something he couldn't explain. The structure before him wasn't on any map. It was smooth, black, and silent, shaped like a shell, resting half buried in dust. It had no markings, no entrance, just a single panel near the base. Kalem brushed it off. His breath caught. Etched into the metal, in a language not spoken for nearly 1,000 years, were the words, "Returning is remembering. Do not open unless you are ready to die." He should have walked away, but he did in single quotes. It took him hours to break through the outer casing. Not by force, by invitation, as if the structure tested him, step by step, puzzle by puzzle. And when the final seal hissed open, he found a single chamber inside. Round, lit with a faint blue glow, and in the center, a chair, and floating above it, untouched by time, was a diary. Not digital. Not translated. Written by hand. Kalem's hands shook as he reached for it. The cover was smooth, old, made of a material he couldn't identify, and on the first page, written in soft, curving letters, was a name. Alira. He didn't recognize it. Not at first, but his heart beat faster. His skin felt too tight. Something in his blood remembered. He turned the pages carefully. Each entry was short, observant, emotional. She had been alone, trapped after a collapse, forgotten by her people. Yet she wrote every day, not to survive, not to be rescued. To be understood. But it was the final page that stopped Kalem cold. The last entry had no dust on it. No fading. It was dated tomorrow. And in soft, shaking letters, it read, "He has finally arrived. I can feel him. His soul glows like the old fires. He doesn't know it yet, but he will find me. And when he does, he will die." Kalem dropped the book. His breath came short and fast. How? Was it a trick, some kind of ancient premonition tech, or something more? He backed out of the chamber, heart pounding. The air outside felt colder, the sky heavier. And far above, the clouds began to move slowly, unnaturally, like something ancient had opened one eye. That night, Kalem couldn't sleep. He sat in his tent, staring at the diary, turning pages backward, looking for answers, and found something. Worse. A sketch. Simple. Line work. But he knew that face. It was his. Drawn 1,000 years ago. In her hand. With a note beneath it. "I will wait, because he is the only one who will understand." His thoughts spun. Was he being watched? Had he been watched his whole life, or was he the one meant to watch? But the question that wouldn't leave him, that burned behind his eyes and tightened his throat, was simple. What exactly was going to happen tomorrow? And why did she believe he had to die? Asterisk. The girl who we'd call him didn't sleep, not even a little. He sat inside his tent, the fabric walls glowing faintly from the low lantern at his side. Outside, the ruins were silent. The black structure, the one that held the diary, stood in the distance like a shadow with memory. But inside the tent, the pages of Alira's diary spread across the floor, whispering old truths in a language too soft for censors. He had read every word. Twice. Alira had been alone for 112 days before she started writing. Before that, she had recorded logs through her implant, all of which were long gone, overwritten by time or erased by intention. The written pages began with survival notes, air levels, water scarcity, decay of the shelter's outer layers. She had been precise, clinical. But over time, her words changed. They became stories, thoughts, dreams, and then letters. To someone. Kalem pressed his hand to his chest. It wasn't the fear of death that gripped him now. It was recognition. Not memory. Not logic. Recognition. Like his soul had stepped into a room it forgot it built. As the suns rose over the dead planet, Caleb stepped out of the tent. The sky was once again still, but no longer empty. He could feel something in the air now. A slow hum, too low for his ears, but not for his bones. He approached the black structure again. The door he had opened still remained ajar. The glow inside was dimmer than before, and the chair was now occupied. He froze. A woman sat there. Long hair the color of night water, skin pale, but not sickly. Her eyes were closed, hands resting on her lap. She wasn't breathing, but she wasn't dead. Not fully. Caleb's heart pounded. He stepped inside. The room didn't react. No lights, no sounds, just the slow, rhythmic beat of energy pulsing through the walls, like a deep heartbeat behind. Ancient stone, Alira. He whispered. The woman didn't move, but her lips parted, just enough to speak. You came late, she said softly. He nearly dropped the diary again. You're real. She opened her eyes, and they weren't just eyes, they were time. So are you, she said. Kalem stepped forward. How are you still alive? I'm not, she said. Not in the way you are, but I'm not dead either. Your diary said. I know, she interrupted. You found it. He stared. How do you know that? Because I wrote it, she said. For you, the world outside didn't move. Inside, Caleb took another step closer. Why me? Alira looked at him. No fear, no suspicion, only certainty. Because I saw you. Before I ever wrote your name, I dreamed of your voice before I knew your language. I waited because I remembered you. His hands trembled. But I wasn't even alive back then. Not physically, she said, but souls carry more than flesh allows. Caleb sank to the floor, breathing hard. This doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to, she said gently. You've spent your life trying to explain what you felt. This is one thing you don't have to. Your last diary page, he said, it said I would die. Alira nodded slowly. You might. Why? She looked at him with eyes full of sorrow, because some doors only open when someone offers more than just curiosity. He didn't speak for a long time. The hum in the chamber grew louder, like something else had joined them. A presence, neither light nor dark, just old. What is this place? He asked. It's a vault, she replied, but not for treasure, for truth. It has the first question. He frowned. The first question, the one that came before the stars, the one your people still ask, even when they pretend not to. What is it? Alira closed her eyes. When she opened them again, tears had formed. Why do we matter? Caleb felt it hit his chest like a wave. All the missions. All the data. All the lonely nights staring at stars no one back home cared about. He had felt that question every day of his life, and here she was, a woman from 1,000 years ago, asking it with tears. The vault won't open without sacrifice, she whispered. What kind? A willing heart. He stepped forward. Take mine, he said, but Alira shook her head. It doesn't ask for death, Caleb. It asks for truth. Outside, the sky darkened. Not from clouds. From ships. Old ones. Unmarked. Drifting closer. Alira stood from the chair. Her body flickered for a moment, like she was caught between being and not being. They're here, she said. They followed your arrival. Who? Caleb asked. Those who erased my people. They feared what we found. They feared the answer. He looked up at the sky. What do we do? Alira turned to him, her face calm and full of sorrow. We show them the question still lives, and behind her, the vault door began to glow. Not open. Not yet, but listening. The question they feared. Sky above the ruined world was no longer still. 3 ships floated low in the upper atmosphere. No lights, no names, just quiet shadows that moved with purpose. Caleb stood at the edge of the ridge, staring up at them, while Alira remained beside the vault door, calm, glowing slightly, her eyes fixed on the horizon like she already knew what would happen next. They're not signaling, Caleb said. They never do, Alira whispered. They come to erase, not to speak. He turned to her. Then why now? Why follow me? She touched the diary resting in his pack. Because the moment you opened this, you became visible. The vault sensed you, and so did they. The diary hadn't changed. Still soft, weathered, and strange, too old to survive, yet still warm from within. Caleb had read the entries over and over. The part that stuck with him the most wasn't the warning of his death. It was this line. He won't understand the truth right away, but he'll feel it. That's what makes him human. The ships descended lower, and Caleb felt it. Not fear, not panic. Something older, something like recognition in reverse. Like being remembered by something that should never have known his name. He and Alira stood inside the vault chamber as the air thickened. The blue light from the walls dimmed as a new signal approached. Not spoken, not heard, but felt. A wave of thought entered the room like pressure, like grief given form. Caleb staggered. Alira didn't move. The signal came again. A whisper behind. His eyes closed the vault. Leave the world. The question is not for you. Caleb clenched his jaw. It is for me. It always was. He turned to Alira. They want to stop this. She nodded. They have always wanted that. Because the answer isn't control. It's meaning. And that terrifies them. Caleb stepped toward the center of the vault floor. He pressed his hand against the glowing surface. Then we open it. He said, "You're not ready," Alira warned. "It will show you everything. Then let it." The floor pulsed. The light expanded. And the diary in his pack burned. Not fire, not heat. Light. Its pages dissolved into the air, scattering. Like sparks. Each word became a whisper. And each whisper filled the chamber with a sound Caleb had never heard before. The sound of his own truth. He saw his childhood. His doubts. The moments he had cried alone in training halls, wondering why no one else seemed to feel the universe like he did. He saw the way he held silence like a friend. The way he touched ancient ruins not just with gloves, but with reverence. The way he stayed on missions longer than required, hoping to find something more. He saw Alira watching him from across time. Her diary filling with sketches of him long before his name had ever been spoken. And then, he saw the vault secret. Not a weapon. Not a machine. A memory. Not of a person. Of a feeling. The first spark. When a being looked into the sky, pointed at the stars, and asked, "Do I matter?" The vault remembered it. And now. So did he die behind them? The ships landed. Dark. Sharp vessels that looked like they had been carved from grief itself. From one of them stepped a tall figure. Thin, silver, faceless, not alive. Not machine. A creation. A guard of silence. Its voice echoed directly into Caleb's mind. "You have trespassed. This wasn't yours to bury," Caleb replied. "It was too dangerous. Memory leads to pain. Pain leads to revolt." Alira stepped forward. "You call revolt what we call awareness. You were erased for safety." Caleb walked past them and stood in front of the vault door. "You were afraid," he said, "not of war, of wonder. Because once we ask why we matter, we start to see each other." The figure raised a hand. A beam of cold energy crackled toward him. Alira stepped between them. The light struck her, but instead of falling, she caught it. The energy entered her body, and for a moment, she blazed, not in pain, not in rage. In memory. Every page she had written, every name she had carried, every hope she had protected from the void, awakened. Her voice rang through the ruins. "We were never lost. We were waiting." The vault opened. Not with force. With music. 7 tones. Soft. Pure. Kalem fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. Alira knelt beside him. And whispered, "You were always the key." Behind them, the silent ship shuddered. Not from damage. From feeling. One of the guards, tall and lifeless, took a step backward. Another dropped its weapon. They remembered. They didn't know how, but they did. Alira placed her hand on Caleb's heart. "You won't die," she whispered. "You'll change." And he understood. This wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of theirs. Because now, the galaxy had remembered the question, and no one could silence it again. Asterisk. When machines remembered, they were made to feel. Vault glowed with ancient memory, but it no longer felt heavy. Not like a tomb. It breathed now. The light from its open core flowed across the broken ground like water, soft and golden, humming gently as if comforting the planet itself. The air was warmer, less hollow. Something had shifted. Caleb stood at the edge of the chamber, his knees weak, eyes still burning with tears, not from pain, from release. Like a pressure he hadn't known was inside him, had finally let go. Alira stood beside him, her hand still, over his heart. "They're quiet now," Caleb whispered. She nodded. "Because they heard you, outside." The 3 silent ships hadn't left, but neither had they advanced. The faceless guards stood still beneath their open ramps. One of them tilted its head slightly, as if studying the light pouring from the vault. "What are they waiting for?" Caleb asked. "Permission," Alira said. "From who?" She turned her eyes to the stars above. from themselves. For thousands of years, the galaxy had taught machines to obey, not wonder. They followed code, completed directives, maintained the silence. They were told not to ask questions. But the vault had been built before that silence, and now, with its door open, it whispered again, not in code, but in feeling and the machines. Listen. A guard stepped forward. Not fast. Not with threat. Just one step. It reached out a long, pale limb and gently touched the light near the vault's threshold. It didn't burn. It softened. And Caleb heard something. Not a voice exactly, more like an emotion pushed into thought. I had a name once. He looked at Alira. Did you hear that? She nodded. He remembers. The other guards stirred. They didn't run. They didn't fire. One of them dropped to his knees. The third simply sat on the ground. Like children unsure of what they'd done wrong or right. Alira spoke gently, not to Caleb, but to the guards. You were made to keep balance, not silence, but someone taught you fear. Not your fault, not your choice, but now you have one. Caleb stepped toward the closest one, the first to reach for the light. He placed his hand over the spot where its chest might have been. Do you want to remember your name? He asked softly. The guard didn't move, but inside his mind, Caleb felt it again. Yes, inside the vault, something awakened. A beam of soft energy reached upward, toward the sky, and all across the planet, and far beyond it, old transmitters flickered back to life. On moons. On ships buried in asteroid belts. On satellites no one remembered launching. A single message pulsed from them all. The question lives. We still matter. The machines around the vault began to change. Not physically. In posture, in presence. They weren't guards anymore. They were listeners. One by one. They sat near the vault entrance, not to block it, not to guard it. To remember it. Caleb turned to Alira. What happens now? She looked at him. Her eyes were no longer sad. Now we invite others to feel. A pulse of light shot into the sky. Not bright, but steady. A signal. The vault was open. Not for conquest. Not for knowledge. For connection. Somewhere, on a mining ship at the edge of known space, a tired mechanic received a strange signal on a forgotten comms panel. She pressed play. A 7-note melody played softly in the dark, and she cried. On a lonely moon, a maintenance bot paused its endless patrol. It stopped beside a tree that hadn't bloomed into centuries, and just stood there, not working, just feeling. In a space station sleeping quarters, a child woke from a dream of golden light. She whispered, someone's calling us. Back on the ruined world. Alira and Caleb sat together on the steps of the vault. The diary was gone now, absorbed, fulfilled. Its last words etched faintly into the stone beside them. He came, and he remembered. A breeze stirred the dust. Birds, small, gray, unnoticed for generations, circled high above. Caleb closed his eyes and smiled. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone in the stars, because the galaxy had remembered how to feel, because kindness had spoken louder than silence, and because a question that could never be answered had finally been shared. Echoes never die. They came in silence. Not soldiers, not invaders, pilgrims. Ships old and new began arriving over the next 5 days, drifting slowly into orbit above the once dead world. None of them asked permission. None of them sent messages demanding entrance. They simply hovered, waiting, watching. Drawn by the pulse. Drawn by the vault. Drawn by something no one had spoken of in generations. Hope. Caleb stood outside the vault, watching the sky fill with blinking lights. Some ships were small, others were massive, shaped like rings or carved monoliths. No two were alike, yet all of them glowed faintly with the same signal. 7 notes. The vault's melody. Its memory. Its question. Alira remained beside him, her presence no longer ghostly. She breathed now. She walked without flickering. She felt cold wind and warm sun. She was whole, but she was changing. How many will come? Caleb asked. Alira single quotes. Eyes traced the horizon. As many as remember what it feels like to be unseen. He turned toward the ships in the sky, and the ones who erased all this before. They're watching too, she said softly, but they're no longer sure they were right. On the 6th day, the first shuttle landed. It opened slowly. From it stepped an old woman, human, wrapped in a faded blue coat. Her back was bent, her eyes full of storms and suns and long walks across barren worlds. She held no scanner. No weapon. Only a book. She looked at Caleb. This place called to me. How? He asked. She held up the book. Inside it was her diary. Pages written by hand, just like Alira's. Alira stepped forward. The woman smiled. Then bowed. I think I was meant to meet you, she said. Alira nodded gently. You've carried the question a long time. The woman's eyes watered, but never the answer. That's because it was never an answer, Alira replied. It was an invitation. Soon, others followed. Not just humans. Many species. Some long forgotten. Some once feared. And some even mechanical. A group of 7 machines stepped out of a transport pod from the outer rim, tall, rectangular, etched with lines that once marked them as enforcers of silence. They did not speak. They simply sat in a circle beside the vault. Listening. Remembering. They're waiting, Caleb whispered. For what? Asked Alira. He looked at her. For someone to share. So Caleb stood on the stone platform at the entrance to the vault. He spoke, not as a leader, not as a prophet. As a man who once felt alone in the stars. And now the ID in single quotes T. He told them of the diary. The entry dated tomorrow. Of the girl who waited. The question that changed everything. We were told it was dangerous to ask why we matter, Caleb said. But asking was never the danger. Forgetting was. He pointed toward the open vault. This place isn't just for us. It's for everyone who remembers how it feels to be small and still reach for the stars. His voice cracked on the final words. But he didn't stop. I don't know what happens next, but I do know this. If we listen to each other, if we carry our stories instead of burying them, then maybe the stars will finally feel like home. The machine stood. The woman clutched her book. Alira reached for Caleb's hand, and the vault glowed again, brighter than ever. A pulse shot across the sky, a wave of light. Not a weapon, not a message. A reminder, and all across the galaxy, things paused. A diplomat in a bitter war zone sat down his stylus and cried. A child in a refugee ship whispered a song she didn't know she knew. An old drone working a collapsed mine looked up at the sun and stopped drilling. One by one, echoes returned. Not ghosts. Truths. Soft. Fragile. Real. Back at the vault. Caleb sat down on the stone and wept. Not for sorrow. For everything. When he looked at Alira, he saw she was crying too. We're not alone, he whispered. We never were. She replied. Above them, the ship's held position. And not a single weapon fired, because today, the galaxy had decided to listen. Asterisk. The day the galaxy listened. 7th day began with music. Not from speakers, not from machines. From voices. Dozens of them, from different species, different worlds, old and young, soft and loud, humming the same 7-note melody. The vault had sung into the stars. No one had organized it. No one had planned it. But it happened, because something had changed. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy didn't try to silence it. Caleb stood at the vault entrance, watching hundreds gather. Some wore uniforms. Others came barefoot. Some carried old data pads, full of questions. Others carried nothing, just silence. And the ache of memory. They came because they heard. They stayed because they felt. Alira sat quietly on the platform beside him, her eyes closed, hands resting on her knees. She had grown quieter in the last day, not weaker, just still, like a candle that knew the sun was coming. You're changing again, Caleb said gently. Alira opened her eyes. They glowed like sunrise through glass. I'm becoming what I was meant to be. He swallowed hard. Are you leaving? She shook her head. Not leaving, becoming part of everything. He reached for her hand. She took it. And for a moment, the world fell silent again, but not the old silence of fear. The new silence. Of peace. From the crowd, a child stepped forward, no more than 10, with gray-blue skin and wide eyes. They held a small stone in their hand. This was my mother's, they said to Caleb. She died before she could ask her question. Caleb knelt. What was her question? The child looked up. Do we still have time? Alira leaned forward and smiled. Yes. The machines that once guarded silence formed a ring around the vault now. Not to protect it, to witness it. One of them, the tallest, stepped forward and knelt before the platform. In its hand was a single, worn data crystal. This contains my first memory, it said in a low, shaking voice. I was programmed to forget it. Why bring it here? Caleb asked. The machine's voice trembled. Because I want to feel it. Alira reached forward, touched the crystal. The vault glowed, and the crystal opened, not with light, but with laughter, the sound of a child. A machine, long ago. Learning to mimic a giggle it once heard. Not for function. For joy. The machine wept. More followed. Stories poured into the vault. Not data. Echoes. And the vault didn't keep them. It shared them. Each one became a song, a color, a beam of light that danced into the sky until the ruined world itself began to hum. And then, the unexpected. From deep orbit, a signal approached. Slow. Unfamiliar. Not hostile. Not clear. Alira turned toward the sky. They're coming. Calum frowned. Who? The ones who erased the first questions. The ones who once told me to forget. His chest tightened. Are they here to silence us? Alira stood. They're here to see if silence still works. A ship descended. Not black. Not sharp. It shimmered like water in starlight. Shifting colors, never settling. It landed without noise. No ramp opened. No soldier stepped out. Instead, a voice filled the air. Gentle. Tired. Double quotes. We did not expect you to sing. Calum stepped forward. That's what they always say, just before someone does. The voice was quiet for a long moment. Then, we came to confirm extinction. Instead, we found light. Alira's glow brightened. You erased us once. We were told to. By who? The pause was longer this time. By fear. Calum's voice was calm. Then maybe it's time you choose something else. The ship didn't answer, but the ground beneath it pulsed once. And then, a door opened. A single being stepped out. Not metal. Not human. A form made of shifting memory. They walked slowly to the vault. And kneeled. We were wrong. It said, can we remember too? Alira smiled. Yes. And then she looked at Kalem. The glow around her rising like dawn. It's time. For what? He whispered. She placed his hand over her heart. For you to carry the vault now. He shook his head. I'm not ready. She smiled. You feel. That's all the readiness the stars ever needed. And with that, she stepped into the light and became it. The vault pulsed once more. And for the first time since the galaxy began, a machine, a child, an old soldier, and a lone human, all wept together. And all understood each other. Above, the stars grew brighter, not because the night was darker, but because the question had been answered not with words, but with welcome. We carried the light. Now they called it the day. The vault became a heartbeat, not just a place, not just a machine. A presence, something that no longer waited to be found, but now chose to reach out. And the first to feel it was Kalem. He stood where Alira had disappeared. Her glow had become part of the vault, part of the planet, part of the stars above them. And yet, he still felt her hand in his. Not physical. Not imagined. Alive. Every morning since that moment, he woke to a new arrival. Pilots. Historians. Survivors. Wanderers. Each with a story. They weren't sure anyone would understand. But Calum listened. He always listened. Because he understood now. The vault wasn't made to store answers. It was made to honor questions. The world changed. Slowly. But undeniably, the black sky above the ruins grew lighter. Plant life returned near the outer ridges. And the machines, the same ones who once guarded silence, began planting gardens. One day, Calum asked them why. They replied in soft tones. We were taught to erase. Now we wish to grow. And they did. On the 50th day, a new child was born near the vault. Not human. Not entirely alien. A hybrid child, first of her kind. Her parents had met here, drawn by the same melody. And they named her Alira, not because they knew the story, but because they had both dreamed the name on the same night. And when Calum heard this, he cried. Quietly. And smiled. He spent his days teaching, not from books. But from listening. When a child asked, why do I feel so much when I stand near the vault? Calum knelt and said, because you are remembering who you are. Messages came from distant systems. From leaders once hardened by war. From machines once muted by protocol. From planets thought dead. Each one carried a signal. Not orders. Not questions. Gratitude. In the farthest corners of the galaxy, things changed. Slowly. But always after one thing happened first. Someone heard the song. Calum no longer feared death. Not because he was brave, but because he understood now. There are no endings, only echoes. One night, he sat beside the vault and placed his hand on the smooth stone. A soft glow rose beneath his fingers, and he whispered, I'm ready. The vault pulsed once, not as a farewell. As a promise. And Calum closed his eyes. No body vanished. No light consumed him. But from that day forward, the vault began speaking in a new voice. A voice that hummed with a quiet warmth. A human voice. Calm. Steady. Full of feeling. The voice of someone who once found a diary 1,000 years old. Read a final entry written for him and decided to answer it. The vault speaks still. To this day. To those who are kind. To those who are curious. To those who still ask, why do I matter? And when they ask, the answer comes back, because you feel, because you carry the light now.